The end of the incredible digital circus left many people practically in mourning, and now the creator has started to address some things about the series, revealing details, even personal wishes of the characters that didn't get screen time. Although she hints that more things might happen, she even talked about a new project that she wants to put into practice. Honestly, she's distancing herself from the digital circus, so I think that's why she started answering a bunch of things that could have become episode topics. So leave a like, because that's what I'm going to talk about now. Man, with the end of the digital circus, many things were left unmentioned. Shared here by Glitch Brazil, look, the creator released an image of what would be her next project. And it's a very curious project. She wants to make it in 4 episodes and she has a concept art of the characters here. To be honest, it looks like a mix of Giganto with creatures that came out of Silent Hill, a bit of medieval medicine. It's a little bizarre, but it really reminded me of it. Here's another series from Glitch, which is District of Flashes, that had an anniversary with the pilot and then they never talked about it again. Man, that's sad. So she has projects like this, and this opened up a lot of discussion for many people. Since it's from the same creator as the amazing digital circus, a lot of people started to be much more accepting and began to praise exactly the same art style. Remember, these are the same people who started criticizing the projects that Glitch began releasing after digital circus. I don't know if you remember, but one of the biggest controversies that Digital Circus had during all this time was that any series released between episodes was basically considered an obstacle to the release of new episodes. For example, when the final episodes of Mutter Drones were coming out, a lot of people thought that Mutter Drones was being rushed to an end because of the circus, and also that the circus wasn't getting new episodes because Mutter Drones needed to finish. Regardless of whether that's true or not, it's already over. And if you thought one thing or another, it's over, man. That doesn't matter anymore because the series has already ended, both of them actually. And the same thing happened with the District of Flashes. A lot of people were criticizing and dismissing the series for no reason without even watching the pilot, just because it came out during the break between episodes of the amazing digital circus. I think this kind of situation is really weird, but the creator herself had to go online to tell people not to hate the new series. And I believe its potential, man, was really hurt because it ended up with this weird reputation from the digital circus fandom. And we get it. The digital circus fans are even pushing away the creator herself, who's publicly talking about new projects she wants to launch from now on. Like it or not, she's heading down a path that does seem similar to the District of Flashes. Looking at this archetype of characters here, I really wish this was fake and that she was actually just borrowing characters from the District of Flashes just to make like some kind of joke aimed at the digital circus fans. Because it wouldn't be the first time we've seen something like this. But when it comes to more episodes that the digital circus could release, one of the things we don't understand was exactly the issue of some characters that she started to respond to things. Since the end of the digital circus, one of the biggest questions everyone had with the end of the circus was how the first abstraction of the incredible digital circus was made. We know it was Scratch, and he was actually a character who was heavily manipulated mentally because of Kane's influence. We can't say it was just him, but that's also implied. There are theories that he actually also suffered under the influence of the bubble itself, and he was like coerced into messing with the minds of each of the circus players. But when he joined the digital circus, as the first player and also the guy who created the brain scratch and managed to get his program working, he ended up suffering precisely because of that, since he wanted to be happy again. And the environment of the digital circus wasn't a suitable place for him to find that happiness. Like, this was a statement made by the creator of E herself. Given the end of the circus and the fact that she's kind of stepped away from producing a new episode for the circus or any other project, for now I wouldn't be surprised at all if what she said is true, because it makes sense. Kane was there the whole time, manipulating the minds of each member of the digital circus, and trying to find a way to be happy in there would make him snap because he couldn't be happy, and the lack of happiness turned him into an abstraction, and that even draws a parallel. A parallel with another character we know very well, Jax. When we learned his story, man, he was basically suffering from a lot of things. Problems in real life, problems with his own identity, things inside the digital circus itself, including the fact that he's a trans person. Actually, a lot of these things were really affecting his mental state inside the digital circus, and a lot of people noticed that this was a pretty clear sign. I know these things aren't said in the series, but the creator herself ended up talking exactly about this. In fact, there are some clues that some people noticed. For example, this thing here about him being a demi girl, right? A girl anyway. When we stop to think about it, his little room is completely pink too. And also, comparing with other episodes, when he appears dressed as a maid, he always seemed extremely uncomfortable with it. And even Zubo said that he might not have liked that situation much. Exactly. That's what we can notice. It shows the kind of person he is. Whether he is or not, fine. It's subtext. But it's being used on merch, with several shirts and phrases like, "Good job, girl," things like that. And we don't really know if they're playing around with that just to get pink money, because it's very common to see a lot of people out there taking advantage of this topic to make money. Fools fall for it, believing a straight person will represent them anyway. What happens is that within the digital circus, this topic has always been explored, especially with the character Zubo. She's basically a character who is the creator herself within the circus. Her avatar was actually this triangle, and this triangle was pretty much a Zubo character. I know there are also people who disagree with this, because she also made other animations with characters with that kind of body, or triangle-shaped heads and things like that. But you can understand that it would be her little avatar and it could be her inserting herself, into the digital circus, but it wouldn't exactly be her for real, even though there are a lot of parallels. Zubo wants to be an artist, she jumped from job to job, and so did the creator. It seems like she worked at McDonald's before starting all of this, so it makes sense for us to believe that the character is exactly about her. And when I say she's a creator, it's because we understand, right? I don't know if you noticed, but she rarely appears in public and always covers her own face, because it seems like there's an identity issue here, like with many people. Those who use avatars to hide their own faces when they should be in front of their own videos, she, for example, was someone who hid her face because she's a trans person, and she's attacked exactly because of that. Actually, I think even the whole digital circus thing was one of the few cases, maybe even very rare cases, where I saw trans people being defended like that on the internet when someone tried to make fun of their appearance, which is a relief. Like, it's really uncommon. In all the time I've been on the internet, it's the first time I've seen it. But all these things that show up here and always try to show that characters had issues that were never developed, it opened the door for a lot of people to start interpreting it that way too. The thing with Jax was just a detail, but the other thing that, he made a point to address was the whole issue with Ragatha and Pomni. A lot of people noticed there was a kind of curious vibe between the two, and since the creator was there talking and talking and talking, this news came out. That Ragatha actually seemed to have unrequited feelings for another girl, and this could be reflected here inside the digital circus in this way. And to add to that, we even have Glitch releasing new images of Ragatha and Pomni talking for hours. That's the caption. Yeah, it's there, implied. Of course, the matter of a romantic relationship between the characters like this wasn't really something the series was going for. The creator said from the beginning, there wasn't supposed to be romance here exactly. But yeah, the whole fandom started making fan art about it. The creator was supporting it, Glitch made jokes about it. In the end, we saw that Genjil and Zubul were having sex and were at the movies, alright? Everyone saw it, everyone laughed, all good. They even did that so it would become a joke inside the digital circus. And it's good that it became a joke. After all, when it's a joke, things get a lot lighter, because a lot of people take this kind of subject extremely seriously, and things get out of control when they go down that path. It's good, right, that they went down that path. I find it curious he didn't say anything. There really wasn't any response about the bubble. The bubble, since the end of the amazing digital circus, was the absence that a lot of people noticed. It only appears for a few seconds as a reflection when Kane is there thinking about everything he was doing and managing to evolve as an artificial intelligence. And in the end, she ends up being locked up here, man, in the vault, suggesting that she could be used later. The creator never mentioned the bubble, and I think at some point she's going to talk about it, but given this information that she's wanting to start a new project, which makes sense, great. It's good that Phantom didn't get in the way of her desire to keep creating. And generally, when people end up doing creative work, there are many people who really like to make sequels to their big project. But there are also those who like to do several new and independent projects. The creator of Digital Circus, in fact, became one of those people who seem to want to do other things. Digital Circus wasn't her first project. She did others, so you can already imagine that she's going to make a sequel. I wouldn't be surprised if Glitch picked up this project to produce it. Man, releasing it like produced by Glitch from the creator of Daya the Amazing Digital Circus would be perfect for making all of this a huge success in the future. But that's the future, man. Anything can happen. Or nothing can happen. Which usually is what happens most of the time.